Prabhupada K. Shri Shri Panchatattva K. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yakya K. His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami K. Nitai Gaura Premanande. So, I'd like to firstly welcome all of you who've come from far and wide to be here at this time with His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami. I think you've come all the way from Mayapur, right? I know you're living in London just now. And from Riga, you've come from Riga. Vinodin has come from London. Van has come from London. someone from Ireland. You've been in our island. And anyway, we'd like to thank everyone for coming, but especially we'd like to thank and welcome His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami. So he needs no introduction. Maharaj has been coming here really for, I guess, maybe 13 years now, I think. I think this might be your 13th visit to Newcastle. Oh no, perhaps during COVID we weren't able to travel. Anyway, been coming here for a long time. But anyway, although we said he needs no introduction, we'll give him a brief one. But Bhakti Caitanya Swami has been practicing and sharing Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga for more than 50 years. Originally from New Zealand. He was studying philosophy, so he was always searching, if you like, and actually saw Srila Prabhupada and the devotees on campus in Auckland. But came to London and actually joined the devotees in London in 1973 when he was initiated. Maharaj is now based in Durban in South Africa, but travels all around the world, sharing the wisdom of Krishna consciousness with everyone. He's an author, he's an initiating spiritual master, part of the GBC and the GBC executive body, and a good friend and well-wisher to everyone here in ISKCON Newcastle. So please, let's give him a very warm welcome. On the count of 3, if you can chant Hare Krishna as loud as you can. Arms in the air. 1, 2. I see some people with no arms in their air. Come on. Arms in the air. Arms in the air. 3. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. And this week Maharaj will be speaking about the glories of Srila Prabhupada. This year we are celebrating the 60th anniversary of ISKCON. So we have been speaking about the glories of Srila Prabhupada and what he has set up with this ISKCON movement. He's built a house in which the whole world can live. So this week Maharaj will be expanding upon the glories of Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. You do that because I'll set up the... Oh, and Haridas, I think, wanted to say something.
Haribo! Grandpa Gurudev, welcome to ISKCON Newcastle. We are happy to have you back.
Thank you. I'm happy to see you again. Very happy. You know, you got bigger since I was here last time. How did you do that? I remain the same size. But it's okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. It's a great pleasure and honor. So, okay, devotees and friends, Hare Krishna to all of you. Hope all is well. And as Chaitanya Prabhu said, we're going to focus on Srila Prabhupada at this time every evening for the next few days. At least tonight, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Saturday. We have another program on Friday evening. Hare Krishna! Very well. Bienvenue. Yes, so we will recount some of the glories of Srila Prabhupada and try and explain a few pastimes in which he displayed his glorious character and different situations, different things he did and said, which just showed what a devotee he is. What a unique, transcendental personality. So to begin, first of all, I will chant some prayers, and you can join in if you want. Namo Vishnuvadaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srila Bhakti Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastishtadesha Tarane Vanchikapaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyayavacha Patitana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes, very good. Now, I actually collect Prabhupada pastimes, and I have a whole file here with many. Having said that, it's quite possible that many of you may have heard many of my stories about Srila Prabhupada. But the thing about Krishna consciousness is that repetition of a good thing is good. So even if you've heard it before, any of these stories, then just hear them again. They sort of get better every time you hear them. Right, so what a good idea, little children. I don't know if they have mothers, but yeah. I know it's difficult. It's difficult being a child. We don't want to have to become a child again, because it's tough. It's tough in so many ways. Anyway, we will just carry on with somehow or other, try to persevere. So the first thing I'll talk about is the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada, which definitely some of you have heard before, but anyway, Haribol. So yes, as Chaitanya Prabhu was saying, I first saw Srila Prabhupada at university in Auckland, New Zealand. It was April 1972. Actually, it was, according to the records that we have, it was April the 17th, 1972. And I was a young, extremely unenthusiastic student. Oh my gosh. If I had been any less enthusiastic, I would have dropped out. And I did drop out. So, really, I was beyond bored. But anyway, there I was, and one morning, seems like it was April, well, some of the records say April the 17th, others say April the 14th, 1972. Anyway, it was round about there. And it was maybe sort of 10-ish in the morning or something along those lines. And probably, I don't think many of you are familiar with the Auckland University. No. Anyway, I was sort of walking along the road, or on the footpath, just by the university where the cars park, and I heard a sound like, it was a little difficult to tell, but like little bells ringing. Can you imagine? Like little bells ringing. And I looked, coming from my right, and I looked across to my right, and who did I see? Maybe about the same distance away from me as Prabhuji is. What is your name, Prabhuji?
Prasad.
Oh, Prasad. Mahaprasad. As Prasad Ji. Or maybe it was slightly further away actually. Was, are you ready? Devotees, brace yourselves. Was Srila Prabhupada himself. Hello. So Srila Prabhupada was the first devotee I saw. It's actually a fact. And the little bells ringing, of course, they were kartals. Devotees were having a little kirtan as Prabhupada was walking almost directly at me, but just sort of slightly in front of me, heading in that direction. Yeah. And so they're having this very mild kirtan. And there were these two young girls. You know the story, don't you? I'm sure you could probably tell it better than me. But there were these two young girls who were sort of 20-ish or something like that. And you've heard this story how many times? Didn't you? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so much for that. So anyway, there they were. And they were dressed in saris. And it didn't register that this was something to do with India. I actually thought maybe they're sort of from some ancient Greek culture. Somehow that idea came to me. That I remember, and I've never mentioned that before. And they were, one of these girls was like about here. If Prabhupada's about here, one of these girls was here, the other one was about there. And they're dancing very gracefully and throwing red rose petals in front of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet as he was walking in this direction, kind of heading in front of me. Yeah, and this was, I'd never seen a scene like that before. I'd never seen anyone walking with people throwing rose petals or any petals under their feet. You know, I'd seen some famous people. I had seen the Rolling Stones. I had seen Led Zeppelin, Elton John, and various others. I had seen it in person, but no one threw any flower petals in front of them. And if they did, I'm sure it would have been a waste, because they're just such useless people. Gosh, unbelievable. Anyway, but this thought just popped into my head. This must be like heaven. It was just such a beautiful scene. So extraordinary and just wonderful. Prabhupada was wearing something like this color, but brighter. You know, silk, you get this very shiny silk. So it was like this, but a bit darker and very shiny. And he was sort of cruising along like this, head back, looking down his nose at the world. And yeah, I thought, wow, this must be like heaven, which was true. And then I saw the young men, there's like half a dozen behind Prabhupada and the three ladies, and they were having little kirtan. And at the time, maybe you can't imagine, but I had really long hair, like about the same length as your hair, I'd say. Something like that. Yeah. And these young men, they had hair about the same length as mine. And I saw this, I was thinking, wow, this looks like heaven. Then I saw them, and I thought, oh, this doesn't look very good. Because in those days, you had to have long hair. You had to have, and like someone like you, I know, the gentleman below, the Iron Maiden man, you would have been considered, short back and sides, with short hair. So, okay, I saw the devotees with shaved heads, and I wasn't impressed, I'm afraid. But anyway, Prabhupada walked past me, and up to the left was the quadrangle, the main sort of square where the great place of pilgrimage, the cafe, was, over on that side. And there was a little stage, by little I mean probably around the same height of this plinth here, which our beautiful altar is standing on, just a very low stage. And they all sat down there, Prabhupada and this group of it may have been 8 devotees altogether. And then Prabhupada started kirtan. And I didn't know who is this, who are these people, or what is going on here. But then Prabhupada started singing Hare Krishna. And then another thought popped into my head. Oh, it's Hare Krishna. Maybe he's Krishna. No joking, I thought that. But anyway, then Prabhupada led kirtan for a little while, and then Prabhupada spoke. And as it happens, devotees, would you believe, that class of Prabhupada's was recorded. And it is here in the database, if you want to look it up sometime. Because I imagine you've all got the database on your phones or whatever. Yeah, because it's free, you can just download it just like that. So anyway, the talk was recorded, and what I'm going to do right now, I am going to read the last few minutes, it may take 5 minutes or 3 or 4 minutes, something, of Prabhupada's talk. Yeah, and I was there. So, okay, here we go. Right. So Prabhupada says, now the younger generation are after suicide. Yes. Oh, that says it right here. Now the younger generation are after suicide. I do not know if this is a fact. Yeah. But there is some dearth, means there's just so much stuff available. So many things are there. So actually there's no cause of frustration. There's very good news for jubilation. That is this Krishna consciousness movement. Don't be frustrated. Try to understand this Krishna consciousness movement, how it is scientific, how it is authorized, how it is old, and how it is accepted by great acharyas, great stalwart learned scholars, and how it is treated by the learned section of all over the world. So our request is that younger section may not feel confused and frustration. There is very nice hope. Those who are taking to this Krishna consciousness, mostly their younger section, now ask them how much hopeful they are, how much jubilant they are. So my request is that you're all young boys and girls, flowers of the country. Don't feel frustration and confused. There is nice hope in Krishna consciousness. My only request is You're all learned, boys and girls. Try to understand this philosophy and science, and you will be happy. That is my request. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. So that's the last little bit from Prabhupada's class there at the university, and I was there. Can you believe it? It's amazing. And that was April the 17th. It says lecture at Auckland University, April 17th, 1972, Auckland. Right, so that's something I'll never forget. I'll never forget that in the whole experience. What an experience. Then what happened was, that was April 72. Then, like I said, I was not very inspired in the university. I was studying all these Western philosophers. And there was one, I think his name is Wittgenstein, German. He had the philosophy of the doubt. You must doubt everything. Don't just be, sort of like, what would you say? Just an innocent fool who just accepts everything, whatever people say. You've got to doubt. Sort of like intellectual integrity, some sort of idea like that. Right, so, so I was studying him and others, and this fellow, I think Wittgenstein, anyway, whoever it was, he developed a following, because in those days, you didn't have, you may not believe this, there were no cell phones. Can you believe that? You can. There was life before cell phones and computers and everything. And people like philosophers who were also entertainers, not just like heavy philosophers. They had followings. They were popular people, famous people. And so this fellow became famous with his philosophy of the doubt. And I was studying him and I thought, well, that's, in a sense, that's not a bad idea. You don't want to just be some sort of fool who just accepts everything that you read in the newspaper or just hear people say. Yeah, you've got to be you've got to think critically, something like that. But, you know what happened? After a while, that fellow, whoever he was, he made an announcement on his web page. That's a joke, by the way. Anyway, he made an announcement that actually all of you who are following me, you're all fools, because I doubt my own philosophy. And when I read that, I thought, what am I doing here? What am I doing, Trying to learn these things and sort of memorize them and then regurgitate them in exams. What am I doing this for? So I did, the only thing I thought was, like a display of integrity, because I was seriously doubting what I was learning at the university, so I dropped out. Yeah, and here I am. Right. So anyway, I dropped out, then I went over to Sydney, and I was a member of the surfing community. And there was a famous, very famous, he's still famous actually, surfer in Australia. His name is Ted Spencer. You can look him up. He's there on the internet. And he was initiated as Hare Krishna Das. And he surfed in the world championships, because he was just one of the top surfers in the whole world. And he surfed in the world championships with a shaved head and a seeker. Yeah. So anyway, what he did, he gave one young man, anyway, a young sort of a surfing groupie type of thing, if you know what I mean. These people have followers. And he gave him, this fellow's name was, do you remember the name? You don't. Spider. Spider, how's that for a name? What would his next lifetime be? Anyway, he gave Spider a Simply Wonderful, which was about this size, and told him, take it to all the surfers in Sydney and get everyone to take a bite. So I was staying on the north side, like sort of the northern end of Sydney, because it runs along the ocean, at a place, what was its name anyway? I forget the name of the beach, near Avalon. And Spider showed up at our house with this Simply Wonderful, which it was about that size. Now it was only about that size. It had reduced in size because people had taken bites out of it, and it had all these tooth marks on it. And I looked at this thing and I thought, are you kidding or what? You want me to actually take a bite of it? But he was insistent. No, you must do it. Ted Spencer says you have to take a bite. All right, all right. So I took a bite. That was my first prasadam. Yeah. And it tasted like eating butter. Okay, anyway. Then later on, actually what must have been October or November or something, I went to England by ship, and I was, there still is, at least the last time I walked up that way, an occult bookshop called the Aquarius or the Aquarian. It's still, last time, a few years ago I walked up there, it was still there. So I walked in and I asked them, do you know where the Hare Krishna temple is? And they said, yeah, it's just on the other side of this block. And it was. So I walked around and I walked in, and it was the Hare Krishna temple. And I'm meant to be focusing on Prabhupada, I shouldn't be focusing on myself. Anyway, the first time second time I saw Prabhupada was when he came to visit the manor for the first time in 1973. It was during the summer, maybe it was June or something, along those lines, and Prabhupada came. And he came from Heathrow by helicopter. And you know the manor, it's got this flat lawn, right, in front. There's the lake, well, the manor's here, and then the lake's kind of slightly to the left, and this flat lawn has been like flattened, yeah. And the helicopter landed on that, and Prabhupada got out. And then the devotees, there were many devotees there, like a good few hundred, because when Prabhupada would come, devotees would come from all over Europe, from Italy, Spain, from France, Holland, even Scandinavia to some degree, Germany. Devotees would come, so many devotees would come to see Prabhupada when he would come. And he would come often to London because it's kind of in the middle between India and United States. And Prabhupada, anyway, he was spending a lot of time in America those days, but he would also go back to India from time to time. And he would stop every time he'd stop in London. So he would stop in London, it would be like 4, 5, 6 times in a year, something like that. It was really good, actually. Right, so Prabhupada got out of the helicopter, and the devotees, the more senior ones, they were close to the helicopter, and they formed, like, they were some on this side, some on that side. Prabhupada walked between the two, groups of devotees, going all the way in to the current book room place. You go right around the building, more or less. Yeah, and you go into the book room. So Prabhupada came in there, and walking between these two lines of devotees the whole way around. There were so many devotees there. And then he came in, and the kitchen, the main kitchen, is on your right, and the theatre room is on your left. And then he went down, and then you take a right, and about 10 meters ahead of you is the entranceway for the temple room. Right? I haven't forgotten. Yeah. So, and it was kind of, in terms of seniority, the most senior, they were close to the helicopter, and gradually there was a reduction in seniority as the devotees came around. And I was one of the new boys, and I was right at the end of the line. Just at, if you're familiar, like really familiar, the actual situation there, at the bottom of the stairs, you got the entrance to the temple room, and right next to it, on the right, is the stairs. You step up a couple of stairs, you turn right, and up you go, and you turn right again, and right again, anyway. Then there's Prabhupada's quarters on the left. So we were right at the bottom of the stairs. And as fate would have it, or perhaps by the arrangement of Lord Krishna, Prabhupada stopped almost right in front of me, but not quite. Like right in front of the next devotee, sort of on my right. Prabhupada stopped there and was talking with Brahmananda Swami. And the devotee next to me slowly put his hand out, and out, and out, and out, and stretched a little bit, not too much, a little bit, and touched Prabhupada's lotus foot. And then I'm on this devotee's left, and we're down, heads on the ground, kneeling. And then he turned to me like this, if you get the idea. We're on an angle here, and I'm about here, and he went like that. And he didn't say it out loud, but he mouthed, "Go on, go on." Okay, so hold on. So I put my hand out, and out, and out, and out, and out. But then Brahmananda Swami, who was a big man, and he had a big danda, really solid one. He saw my hand, and he went bang on my hand. So I withdrew my hand. But now this devotee is right next to me. He saw this happen, and now my hand's coming back. But now he turned to me again. If you can imagine, our heads are on the floor. And he went again, he went, go on, go on. So out came my hand for a second time. And out, and out, and out, and out. Because Prabhupada was further away from me. And out. But somehow, by Prabhupada's grace and Krishna's mercy, I managed to touch Srila Prabhupada's lotus foot. And maybe that's probably why I'm still here. Just some special mercy from Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. Then I'll tell you next about one darshan which I was present for in Prabhupada's main darshan room at the manor. There's only, I think not more than 10 of us there. But Prabhupada was speaking and devotees were asking questions. And one thing that really struck me, boy, it really struck me, was that one devotee, he asked Prabhupada, well, he referred to Nectar of Devotion, I think it's chapter 6. Anyway, it's the chapter about offenses. And there's, a whole lot of offenses listed out. And at the end, there are the 10 offenses in chanting. But the other, so many, at the end of those, there's a couple of lists. It says, if you commit any of these offenses, then just keep chanting Hare Krishna, and, the reactions will just be removed. But then the devotee read just the list of the 10 offenses, and have a look there, and you'll see Prabhupada says, if you commit these offenses, you cannot escape the reactions. So the devotee read this out to Prabhupada. And then he asked Prabhupada, isn't it possible? Isn't there something we can do to escape the reactions to those offenses? And Prabhupada gave him a look. I can't imitate it, but a very penetrating look. Gora! Anyway, okay. Take money away, yeah. So, right. So Prabhupada looked at him. Silence for a few seconds. And I was wondering, what's happening? Then Prabhupada said, you are asking this question because you want to offend. And then you just want to do something. Just do something to escape the reactions. But you must not think like that. Prabhupada said, you must stop your offenses. No more offenses, Prabhupada said. Now, unfortunately, that was not recorded. Another interesting thing Prabhupada said during that darshan, which I don't think I've really mentioned before, is that a devotee asked that if we're staying in the temple and we do some wrong things, make some mistakes, not really like offenses, but some mistakes or something, will we get reactions, more reactions than if we're going out preaching and doing book distribution and preaching? Will we get more reactions if we're staying in the temple and not preaching, and if we're going out and preaching and distributing books, will we actually be more quickly freed from any reactions to any mistakes? And Prabhupada made it very clear that if you're preaching, doing book distribution, or just anything, trying to give people Krishna consciousness, then even you do something wrong for which you would normally get a reaction, but Prabhupada said, Krishna, no, just take the reaction away. Just take it away. Whereas if you're living in the temple, where, let's face it, life is a lot sort of easier. You don't have to deal with, the public, because oftentimes members of the public are kind of a bit strange, like funny strange. Yeah. So Prabhupada said like that. And that really struck me. And that's the thing about the offences. Then, a couple of other things happened actually. One thing I'll mention which did happen is a devotee asked Prabhupada, the exact details I forget, but it was basically that if you are living like on a desert island and, there's some seaweed in the ocean right nearby, but now you've eaten all the seaweed and there's just nothing else to eat, but there's one animal. Would it be all right under those circumstances to kill the animal and eat the body of the animal? And Prabhupada, this also struck me, Prabhupada turned and looked at me. He really, he looked at me. And Prabhupada said, a devotee would rather die, than do something like that. Devotee would rather die. Now, I'll tell you a story which I was not actually present, but Prabhupada was at Bhaktivedanta Manor. Because when he came during the summer, Prabhupada liked to go and sit out on the lawn. And I'm sure you've seen photos of Prabhupada sitting on the lawn chanting, a small group of devotees by him, around him. So they're out there, and devotee asked Prabhupada that when we walk on the grass, does it hurt the grass? Is it like we're stepping on the heads of the blades of grass? The devotee asked Prabhupada. And does it hurt the grass? And Prabhupada said, yes, it hurts the grass. And the devotee asked, would we get some reaction for doing that? And Prabhupada said, you should only walk on the grass if you are walking for Krishna. You're actually doing some service, and therefore you're walking on the grass. And here's another one which I just heard. What would it be when we were in Lithuania? I don't know if you were right there at the time, maybe not. But Srila Kirti Prabhu was there. And he told us that he didn't say, well, I don't recall if he said where this happened, but Prabhupada was staying at one temple somewhere, and it was a place where the temple's like a house, and it has some gardens and some lawn around it. And Srila Kirti Prabhu was with Prabhupada, and someone was mowing the lawn, with these lawnmowers, they're quite noisy. And Prabhupada asked Srila Kirti Prabhu, can you please go out and tell him to stop mowing the lawn? He should not mow the lawn while I'm here, because I can hear the grass screaming. Yeah. I can hear the grass screaming through being, brutalized by the lawnmower. Anyway, that's interesting. That was a very recent one. I just heard a few days ago. Yes, right. And here's one from Tribhuvanatha Prabhu. Tribhuvanatha Prabhu told me this, that it was 1972, so I had not arrived yet. I had not joined the temple. I had not come to England. I was sort of en route, probably, or maybe just in Australia. So anyway, Prabhupada, during the class, well, in those days, in Berry Place, the temple room is kind of longish and a little on the narrow side, sort of. And Prabhupada, if you can imagine, of course, the proportions are different here. This is wider in front of the altar, but there, in front of the altar, it was narrow, fairly narrow. And Prabhupada's Vyasa-san, if you can imagine if the altar's there, and Prabhupada would sit, not like where his Vyasa-san is, but if the Vyasa-san was almost right by the edge of the altar, but now all the devotees are sitting down this way, so Prabhupada's Vyasa-san was on an angle facing down through the devotees. But Prabhupada was so close to the altar that, it was almost like he could reach out and touch the deities. Not exactly, but kind of like that. So, yes, so Prabhupada was giving class in Berry Place, and Prabhupada stopped, and he looked at the deities, and he became emotional. And he just looked at them for some seconds. And then Prabhupada turned back to look at the devotees. And Prabhupada said, I have captured Krishna. I'm holding him here for you. Now you please come and take him. Yeah. Really, very nice. And here's an amusing one. Brace yourselves. It's good you're all sitting down. Prabhupada, one devotee asked Prabhupada, what happens? Why does Krishna allow the devotees to become sick? And Srila Prabhupada said, when a devotee becomes sick, it is like Krishna is giving the devotee a love bite. Now, if you don't know what a love bite is, don't worry about it, okay? It's all right. You're too young. But yeah, it's really, for someone like Prabhupada to say something like that, it's really quite extraordinary. And then Tribhuvanatha Prabhu. These are from Tribhuvanatha Prabhu. After class, he would go up and see Prabhupada in his quarters there in Berry Place. And one other devotee came up with him one morning. And the other devotee asked Prabhupada, or Prabhupada was sitting there having some breakfast, and he was listening to a tape of the class he had just given a matter of minutes, or like 15 or 20 minutes ago maybe. And the devotee asked Prabhupada, why are you listening to yourself giving a class? And Srila Prabhupada really told me that he thought, what is this devotee doing, asking Prabhupada a question like that? But anyway, the devotee asked, why do you listen to yourself, your classes? And Srila Prabhupada answered, it's because I do not give these classes. I do not speak them. It is coming from Krishna. It's coming from Krishna. So therefore I am very happy to listen to my classes, because it's not me, it's Krishna actually speaking through me. And so Prabhupada would fairly often or regularly listen to classes he had just given, like even that day or the last few days. Incidentally, is anyone, you're in charge, aren't you? What time should we finish? It's 20 to 8.
We said like around an hour every day, so...
Okay, so like 8:30. It's a joke. Don't worry. Okay, I'll tell one or two more. And this one I'm sure you've heard, but it's such a good one. It's also from Tribhuvan Prabhu, the late. What a devotee. Prabhupada was on his way, it's like 72 or maybe 71. Prabhupada was on his way to Conway Hall. He gave, I think, a series of classes in Conway Hall, which is somewhere in London. And so they would drive from the temple, kind of across central London, then down the driveway to Buckingham Palace. Then you turn left, right in front of Buckingham Palace, and then you sort of keep going down through central London. So they're driving and they're approaching Buckingham Palace. And one devotee sitting in the car said, Srila Prabhupada, one of the guards from Buckingham Palace has just become a devotee. One of the guards. One of these fellows who wears the big black hats. One of them has become a devotee. He's a very important person. He's a really important person. He's become a devotee. As I understand, that devotee, anyway, his name was, when he was initiated, was Abhimanyu. So anyway, he's saying like this, yeah, he's a very important person. He's one of the guards, and very important person, and he's become a devotee. And Srila Prabhupada, in a sort of nonchalant way, and slightly sarcastic, Prabhupada said, and what about the Queen? Oh, Krishna. Yeah, Prabhupada, I tell you what, he had a real sense of humor. So, what now? Yeah. Here's an interesting one, listen to this. Prabhupada, and I won't have told this before. Prabhupada was on a morning walk somewhere in the centre of London. He used to go to, I forget the name of the square, but not Soho Square. Russell. Yeah, I think Russell. So but they were walking in central London. And Prabhupada noticed there was a tap which water was dripping from in like someone's front yard. And Prabhupada just walked straight into this person's yard and turned off the tap. Yes. So, and he stopped the dripping. So, your sort of normal person probably wouldn't do that. Go into private property and do something like that. But Prabhupada, he's the ambassador for the spiritual world, teaching us how to act properly. And he didn't like it when Krishna's energy was being wasted, even if it was just something to do with non-devotees. Want to speak of devotees wasting Krishna's energy. Yeah. And one thing Prabhupada said when he was in London, Prabhupada said, when you go back to Godhead, I will meet you there. Prabhupada said, Krishna will come. He will stand on one side of me. I will be in the middle. You will be on the other side of me. And Krishna will take your hand. Prabhupada will take your hand and one of Krishna's hands and put them together. Yes. So there you'll be, holding hands with Krishna by Prabhupada's mercy. Yes. Very nice. Okay. I don't want the authorities to get angry with me, so I'll probably have to stop pretty soon. This is another one Srila Prabhupada told, and I tell you what, it's actually not directly involving Prabhupada. Exactly. But of course, Prabhupada's there. The temple president, who I think at the time was Dayananda Prabhu, I suspect none of you would have known Dayananda. He was the temple president in London, like 1970, 1971, 72, and then Dhananjaya Prabhu took over. So Tribhunath Prabhu had just moved into the temple, very place, and he was either 17, maybe 18 years old. But I think he was still 17, and he just moved into the temple. And Dayananda Prabhu, the president, walked up to him and said, you know what? We're all going to India. We'll be back in about a month. You'll have to look after the temple on his own. He's been a devotee like weeks, not years, but some weeks. And he's told, yeah, you just look after the temple till we get back after, some weeks or maybe a month. So there he was, and that's what could he do? Tribhunath Prabhu. So, he was 18 actually. And one day, the telephone rang. It was the BBC TV. And they said, can we speak to the person in charge, please? And Tribhunath Prabhu, he was everything. He was the head cook, the head cleaner, you name it, he was it. And he was the person in charge. So he said, yes, that's me. And they said, yeah, we want to come over and interview you. Yeah, and we'll be on BBC TV. Can we come over? And he said, yeah, sure, come on over. So they came. And they interviewed him, 18 years old. He's been a devotee a matter of weeks. And he introduced himself, or they said, we understand you are the manager or the president of the organization here in London. He said yes, because he was. I mean, there was no one else who could be. And his parents, who lived in Ireland, Central Ireland, kind of out of the way spot, they didn't even know he'd become a devotee. And this is how he found out. Here he is, he's 18, and he's the head of the Hare Krishna movement in the UK and Ireland. Okay, devotees, I think I'm going to have to stop. Let me just see. But I do remember, sitting outside Prabhupada's room. His room's there. We would sit outside there, and in the evenings Prabhupada would play on harmonium and just sing himself. No other instruments. He'd play and sing, and we'd sit outside just immediately opposite his front door and listen. And then some Mahaprasadam would come out, including orange skins. Because Prabhupada would take oranges with the skin on, and he'd chew on the, where the juice is, and suck the juice, and just leave the sort of, the rest. And of course the skin. And we would get it, and we would eat the skin. Yeah. Not so tasty, but, transcendental. Really just transcendentally wonderful. There are other things I can tell you. Maybe tomorrow, let's see how it goes. About my own experiences. So anyway, we'll start, what time we'll start tomorrow? Same time? Like 6:30 or 6:45?
6:30. And 6:30 is your time from 6:30 to 6:45.
Okay.
And then
Okay, got it. All right. So I hope you found that interesting. And there's all sorts of things to come. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada King.
His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami Ki. His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami Ki. His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami Ki.
I paid her £5. Okay, so that's it.
We'll have a little kirtan and then we'll serve some light refreshments.
Okay. Yes, right. Kirtan.